Haiti borders with the Dominican.
Her name is Serena Buffalino. They call her Mrs. B, and her class always begins with a pledge.
Something local, something global. Haiti.
They're words that carry weight here. Helping yourself means helping others, giving back, here and a world away in Haiti.
And nobody's helping them, except for people like us.
It was through her the class learned of Haiti, of the nearly 1 million orphans, many with no school, no support, no Mrs. B in their lives.
They could not wrap their head around that.
Mrs. B's students are among Toronto's most at risk. Their challenges vary from emotional and behavioral difficulties to learning disabilities. Their trauma so severe they can't function in a regular school setting, and we aren't allowed to show most of their classmates.
For most of the kids, most of society has turned them away. And in this classroom, they're accepted. They're accepted no matter what for who they are.
Take Yolanda. She came here last year so burdened and withdrawn, she would often fall silent, sometimes for days on end. It was, she says, Mrs. B's patience, her quiet encouragement, that saved her.
She actually saves people's lives from dangers.
And perhaps that's why these marginalized kids feel such a kinship with the orphans of Haiti, and why they were moved to act.
And so when Yolanda and Jackie and Patrick said, well, Miss B, we need to build them a school.
Build a school, no easy task. They started out raising money. They sold samosas, washed cars, screened movies, you name it. And in just a few months, this little class raised $20,000. So much, it's not just a one-room schoolhouse they can build, but a full 3-story school. And so Mrs. B set off on a journey she'd dreamed of, up into the dusty mountains above Port-au-Prince to a town called Canaan. It's home to thousands of earthquake refugees who live with no running water, no electricity, and no school, until now. The first step was a temporary school. It's up and running. 53 students already in uniform. The permanent school for 250 is growing from its foundations.
It makes me want to cry because she just makes me feel so awed, and I'm very proud of her.
All of this because of a handful of students back in Canada and Mrs. B, the teacher who believed in them.
These are for you.
At another fundraiser, a special tribute to the students, accepted by someone who, without Mrs. B, might not be here.
They believe in me and I believe in them, and together we not only change our lives, but we change the world around us.
For inspiring great things and seeing the potential in everyone, Serena Buffalino is this week's Everyday Hero.
I'm hanging on your every word, the love inside, I feel it burn. I've never felt this way before. I've had a taste, now I want more. So here we are, just you and me. I'm overwhelmed when you touch me. You talk so sweet, I hear the sound, 'cause when you do,
Good morning. Bonjour. Ni hao. Hola. Bienvenue. Wan yin. Bienvenidos. And welcome. Welcome to my friends in Maia, who is in Senegal. I'm sorry I messed up your name last time. Welcome. Welcome to bonjour. Comment ça va to my friends Mary Lou and Jean-Claude in France. C'est un plaisir de vous avoir ici. Je suis français maintenant. Voilà. Welcome to my mentor and great person in the field of gemology, Mr. Robert James, who is the president and owner of the International School of Gemology. I'm honored to have you here today. And welcome to all of you to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each week, I have the honor of taking you on a journey to places that you've never been before, to stories that you've never heard before. Each week, I get to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. Because when you study gemology and when you begin to look at jewelry and gemology and what it means, you begin to understand there's got to be more. The whole history of mankind really revolves around gemstones and precious metals. My logo, ruby, a sapphire, citrine, which is quartz, emerald, diamonds, and gold, have a remarkable imprint, have left a remarkable imprint in men and women throughout the history of time. So I believe that gemstones are more than just something that you put on your ear or your neck or your fingers and your toes. I believe that gemstones can be used as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help all of us discover the value of our own stories. And as you know, I've been talking about stories for a very long time. And as I've said in many episodes, that nothing has value without a story. Think about that for a second. If aliens were to come right now and you only had one thing to remove out your house, and if I said to you, why did you take that one thing? What would you have to do? In order to tell me what it is, you would have to tell me a story. That's the only way you get to value. And that's what gemology has done for me. And that's what I want people to get out of this, is that the same concepts, the same understandings that we put to gemstones for thousands and thousands of years, those same characteristics and qualities can be used for us. I was going to do alexandrite, which is the other gemstone for June. June, as I said, this is the month of love. And June is one of those gemstones that actually, one of those months that actually have three gemstones. You have pearls, you have alexandrite, which I can't wait to get to next week. And then there's gemstones called feldspars. Feldspars, and I talked about it a little bit last week. Moonstone is a feldspar. And what you have to, the thing that makes gemstones or gemology so amazing to me is that we know about the big stones. We know about the diamonds, rubies, sapphires, pearls, but oftentimes great stories and great lessons can be learned from the minor gemstones, the gemstones that people don't readily know about, because it's in those gemstones that you can begin to see who you are and what your story can mean. First, I want to let you know that a feldspar is the most abundant gemstone on Earth, literally on Earth. All gemstones, I'm sorry, so much of the rocks that you see are feldspars. This is an example of, this is Amazonite. Amazonite, yes, it was found in the Amazon basin. Amazonite is basically a gemstone. It's made out of potassium, sodium, or calcium, aluminum silicate. Now, I don't need you to get into the science of it. I just want you to understand that here's a substance that is abundant. The whole earth, 60 to 70% of all the rocks that you've ever picked up in your life had some aspect of feldspar in it. And so there is abundance, a ubiquitousness of this gemstone, this gem material, but yet a sunstone is something special. You have to begin to understand how, even though from something so abundant, we can have something rare and unique, just like you. Feldspars, and there's many of them. You have, I can't even remember all of them. You have feldspars, you have moonstone, labradorite, sunstones, Amazonite, Oregon sunstones. You have orthoclase. You have a gemstone called andesite, which actually Robert James and his school, the International School of Gemology, really changed the whole direction of gemology, because people were creating this feldspar and saying it was from Tibet, where Robert James and his students and his employees found out that that wasn't true. It was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. But the key thing is understanding, as I say all the time, gem identification. What is it? What does that gemstone mean? What is in that gemstone that gives it those types of powers? Feldspars, or at least some aspects of feldspars, the moonstones, the labradorite, the Amazonite, and the sunstone, those are not only just regular gemstones, they are called phenomenal gemstones, because what they do can't be found, or found very rarely, in other gemstones. To be honest with you, I never really got into what's called metaphysics. Metaphysics is something that people told me about for a very long time, which is strange because I've always gotten into the whole concept of the force. But as a scientist, I couldn't really see metaphysics. I couldn't really understand how that relates. There's people like the woman, one of our viewers, Maya from Senegal, who is totally into numbers. It can say, oh, well, this is a 7 and this is the sign of the moon. I don't, as a scientist, I'm still growing in understanding that, because I want to, for me, I need to see the link. I need to see how that's all put together in a way where people can understand it. I believe that, and the purpose of this show is to show that there is a connection between the scientific aspects of gemstones and also the metaphysical aspects of it. So today, what I want you to get out of it is that, how does a gemstone that is ubiquitous, that is found all over the earth, how do those gemstones have special powers? Now, some of you will say, as I've said for many, many years, nah, that's just hocus pocus. People don't really believe in that. But you got to think to yourself, okay, let's go with your point of view. Let's say that it's all hocus pocus and everything else. But if you understand the concept of stories, that's where the power comes in. Amazonite has been around for literally 4,000 years. 4,000 years Amazonite has existed. So the Egyptians, Amazonite is found in Colombia, India, Madagascar, Namibia, in Russia, in Siberia. Amazonite is called Amazon because some of the best Amazonite is found in the Amazon basin. in South America. So the real question is not whether or not it exists, whether or not supposedly Amazonite has the power. It is a stone of harmony. It's a stone of harmony. So when you look at this beautiful, soft green color, then you start to say to yourself, okay, there's just the relaxing feeling of it. If you understand stories, then that means that someone once upon a time, see how once upon a time comes in, that once upon a time someone saw that stone and this is how they felt. This is how they felt. And then that person told that story, said that name, identified, held that stone in their hand. And because of the story that they told other people, 4,000 years later, we still refer to this stone as the stone of harmony. Amazonite was used in the 7th chapter of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The whole book, that chapter was engraved in Amazonite. Amazonite, it was the third stone of the breastplate of Moses. So I don't know where it is in the Bible, but it's obviously there. So the question is not whether or not you believe. The question of do you want to believe? Amazonite is supposedly going to it is the gemstone of words. It is the gemstone of dreams. It's talking about stories. Amazonite, if you hold Amazonite in your hand, then this opens you up to your own dreams. You begin to understand your dream. And because it is the gemstone of words, I read somewhere, and don't let me quote the Bible, but somewhere in the Bible, it says, I think it's in Genesis, where it says that it was the word of God that created the world. Those of us who are speakers and Toastmasters, imagine the power of that. Even if that's not true, somebody believed it. So if you purchase or obtain an Amazonite and you believe that this stone can imbue you with those powers, how can it hurt? If you understand and have been with me since the beginning, when I talked about the book that saved my life, which is still right here, As a Man Thinketh, what does it say? Very soon, so altered has his mind become. Whatever you believe in can manifest. That's what Amazonite does. It allows you to manifest your dreams. It magnifies your intentions, all from this little stone. And the question is, how can a stone that just basically made up of potassium, sodium, or calcium of aluminum silicate, just simple elements. We're not talking about chromium like in rubies, or iron and titanium in sapphires. We're talking about basic, simple elements. And yet out of that can be found everywhere, but yet out of that, something special happens. Amazonite is different than other gemstones in its molecular structure, in its coloring, in the way it reacts, the energy. And if you understand energy, then again, we talked about it, I don't know what episode, we talked about how the second law of thermodynamics that says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred from one substance to another. So who is to say that 4,000 years ago, we're talking about the Egyptians, the Assyrians, we're talking about the beginning, or we're talking about pre-Columbian, Central and South American people believe that this stone would imbue them with heightened mental powers. I don't know about you, but at my age, anything that I can use to increase my mental powers and my mental clarity. Anything that will allow me to fulfill and intensify my dreams, my hopes, my desires. I'm up to buying that. I'm up to being a part of that. When you look at things we talked about, moonstone. Moonstone is the stone of mystery, feminine power. And from a scientific view, think about it. The sun is 93 million miles from the moon. So the light from the sun, the moon doesn't generate its own light. So the light from the sun transfers 93 million miles to the moon. Then that sunlight hits the moon and is reflected off something like 285,000 miles to Earth. And from Earth, a moonstone happens. Let me use this one. A moonstone. And what the ancient Romans believed is that that light coming from the moon solidified and crystallized into a moonstone. So they believe it's not whether I have scientific proof that that happens, but the power of stories is that they believed that it was imbued with special powers. This is what we talk about all the time. There's different ways of people talking about. In order for something to happen, you first must believe that it's going to happen. A moonstone connects women to their heightened feminine powers. It gives them an awareness of what the connection to the goddess, because the moonstone is a feminine the moon is a feminine object. Cultures that believed in the lunar calendars had lunar gods because even ancient people understood the effects of the moon. Now, as a scientist, I have to admit that there is no evidence that says that the gravitational force of the moon has an effect on people, because first of all, the gravitational pull of the moon really only works on open bodies of water. We are contained. We are mostly made up of water, but we're contained. So it doesn't have that kind of effect. Think about it. If you took a glass of water, that glass of water does not really change if there's a full moon. I think a full moon is in a couple of days. So it doesn't really change. So therefore the word lunacy, which comes from lunar, speaks to supposedly that effect. So no, scientifically, I can't prove that to happen. But I think what they were talking about was the energy shifts that they can see in people, especially women are more sensitive to that. How could you not? But the thing about gemology that gets me is that you can see the connections. All you have to do is just take a step back. Take a step back and look at it. Look at how it affects just people in general, and to see the characteristics, the qualities that you see in women all the time. All the time. All of us had a mother, a grandmother, an auntie that could see things, that knew what we were doing before we did it. How many times have we heard stories of a woman looking at another woman saying, "You're pregnant, right?" And as a man, I'm saying, "How did you know that?" And it wound up being something true. All of us has had our moms. My mom was a ninja. All of us had our moms see something or throw us something in the back. Barbara said something. Her mom threw a shoe or in the back of the head just because she saw something. My mother could throw stuff and be across the room because she had powers. So is it really that much of a stretch to say that a gemstone, moonstone, is made up of potassium, aluminum, silicate, simple elements, but yet we have imbued it with a certain level of powers. So if those powers are true, if those understanding, if that value to a moonstone, or we attribute those powers to a moonstone, why can't we attribute those same gifts and powers to us? Well, the main thing that I want you to get out of this show each and every week is just the characteristic, the analogy between gemstones and us. And the real question is, how is it that we can see it in a gemstone? All of us have seen, and I've talked about moonstone before. Look at the light. Look at the light. All of us have been in a place, in a party, in a room, where a woman walks into the door, a man walks into a room, and you could see the light. And it seems as if the light followed that person across the room. And not only did the light follow that, you followed that person across, because you can feel their energy. A moonstone functions the way it functions is because it has basically two types of feldspar. And I don't need to get into the technical, but it has two types of feldspar that lies in layers. And the light, again, going back to what gemstones do, gemstones interact with the light. Gemstones don't exist, meaning they're there, but what we see would not exist without the light. So therefore, the way it interacts with the light is what gives it its power. How is that any different than the people that we love? The people that we see every day, that person that gives us that smile, that person that gives us that energy, that person that empowers us to be better. I would say that the gemstones, if you believe those gemstones have the same qualities that we give to people, because those people touch us, they move us. They allow, not only do they allow us to see the light that's within inside of them, but even better, they allow the light to come outside of each of us, of who we are. A moonstone talks, when you talk about a moonstone, you're talking about, for men, I talked about the moonstone as far as women, but for men, I think it's even more powerful, because women have not all women, obviously, there's different levels of women understanding their power, but what a moonstone is supposed to do is, by holding that moonstone, possessing that moonstone, for men, that moonstone allows you to be in touch of not only just a higher awakening to your own masculinity, but awareness of your feminine side, of understanding the other side. I think that's, for a man, imagine every man just in the United States, just within your community, your family, if that stone, if you gave every man in your life a moonstone, and now because of that moonstone, that man understands why you feel, I'm talking to women, why you feel the way you feel. Imagine some of the testosterone that men have, and I'm certainly an alpha male, so I would love to be more aware of my feminine side, of the things that, the way I think, contrary to the way a woman thinks. That's what a moonstone does. A moonstone gives you that level of power, and look at it. Look at the softness. Look at the way the light billows off of it. Isn't that your mom? Can't you? Wasn't even my mom, and we all know I've had issues, but there were times, there were moments when my mother just looked at me. She never told me she loved me. But there, I can remember, if I think back, I remember there was times when she just looked at me with that softness that everything was going to be okay. You see that, some of you see my Facebook post with my niece and nephew, my little Gianna. And when Gianna looks at me like that and just says, Wabi, can we do something? And even though I want to say no, I look at the softness of that, of her, that basic femininity, that basic womanness that she is at 6. And I have to at least take a moment to consider that is what Moonstone does. And there's so many other things that gemstones allow you to believe in. But what I believe in right now is that we need to go to a commercial break. And we'll talk about that on the other side.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. We'll match you with the perfect buddy. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
We're offering you a free membership, so please sign up today. Share this with your friends and family, and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a Buddies Network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
All right, we're back. Yes, this is the moon. I know my head is about the same size, but we're talking about moonstone. We're talking about metaphysics and the energy of moonstones. Look at the moon. All of us, as I said, the full moon will be in a couple of days. And think about, when you think about the power of gemstones, but in this case, we're talking about moonstone, think about how, is it really that far of a stretch to think that gemstone can be imbued with a certain level of power coming from the moon? How many people who have gotten married, who have found the love of their lives, and it started with that day that they was standing in a field on the street, and you saw the power, the beautiful light of the moon. As you know, I live right on Lake Michigan, so this is my backyard. The moon has never been that large, but this is my backyard. And when I want to be in a much calmer place, I go there and look at the moon. Now imagine if you could carry that in your pocket. Carry that same, this is the moon. This is a moonstone. So is it really that far of a stretch to believe that the ancients, the Egyptians, the Romans believed that this stone was imbued with a certain level of power? That this stone was connected to the feminine, and by therefore connecting with the feminine enhanced woman power. I love even the term for the way the light hits a moonstone is different than it. It's called adolescence. Adolescence. It basically, it talks about the billowing effect, that when you move this stone, there's a softness, there's an energy. I think about the softness of my grandmother's arms. My grandmother had those big giant arms. She was a big woman. And I remember just feeling like I was in heaven when I just laid in her arms. Imagine people wanting that feeling, wanting that understanding of what a moonstone can do. The stone of mystery, in the sense of not mystery like, I don't know where she comes from, but mystery of how does she make me feel like this? That's what I think the mystery is. The mystery is understanding the power of a woman. That's what this show is, not my show. That's what this network Diamond Factor experience is about, is not just for women, but for not just women, but men as well, but understanding our power, understanding our beauty, understanding the softness of the feminine power, but still the power of it. The moon is responsible for the waves, the cycles of the earth. High tide, low tide of the water of the earth moves because of the gravitational power of the moon. What is your moon? Who is the moon in your life? Who gives you that gravitational power? For some of us, it's our moms. I didn't necessarily have that experience, but I've had the power, the softness, the strength, the energy of women being in my life. They have transformed me. That has softened me. Even sometimes people, I'm thinking of someone like Bibi Maloney or Carolyn Arthur or my business partner, Cosette. There's so many women in my life who just took me aside and said, Barry, you know that voice, guys? You know that voice that your mom gives you or your wife gives you where they just go, you know, that's the power. That's the energy. That's that softness where you can feel the beauty of it. You can feel the beauty of it. You can feel the power of it. And yet it's just not overpowering. It just is soft. Then we have gemstones. Then we have gemstones like sunstone. Sunstone is whereas a moonstone is the yang, is the yin. A sunstone is the yang. A sunstone, a sun is the power. A sunstone is the only stone that is imbued with the power of the sun. What a sunstone does, it literally has platelets. It has small platelets that gives you that sparkling iridescence. it sparkles just like the sun, just like your spirit. When you wake up in the morning and you feel that soft, that energy, you feel the power of your day, of where you are in your life. That's what a sunstone does. A sunstone, and again, simple elements. I want you to understand, we're not talking about the diamonds, the rubies, the sapphires, the pearls, the emerald. We're talking about the most basic of gemstones. I think sunstone is made up of, sunstone is calcium, sodium, aluminum, silicate. So those are the periodic table. We're talking about those elements that's on the left side of the periodic. Sodium, calcium, milk, salt, put together in such a way that it creates, voila, a sunstone. So if a moonstone speaks to the feminine, a sunstone speaks to to enhanced male energy. And not male energy just where you become even more of a brute. Not talking about that kind of male energy. We're talking about male energy in a leadership kind of way. A sunstone reflects to leadership and warmth, mental clarity. Being able to, sunstone gives you the power to be benevolent to others. A real leader. A leader that takes time to think. Think about the sun. The sun does not discriminate. The sun, when the sun rises, it shines its light throughout whatever it touches. That's a sunstone. You can feel the energy of it. And not saying that women don't have that power, but right now I'm talking about just the male energy. To be able to give that power to someone else from a male point of view. So when I'm with my nephew, Bryson, we call him Boogie, Bryson, I'm his wobby. When I'm with him, I hope that the male energy that I teach him, that you don't have to use your be angry. I teach him not to be, that violence is not the first option, because he's 8 and he's at that age where he just wants to fight and everything. It's like, why? That's what a sunstone does. A sunstone is a stone of personal power and freedom. Personal power and freedom and enhance consciousness. That's what a sunstone does. And again, it's not because it's written in a book somewhere, meaning like, well, we have documented evidence that if you put a sunstone in your pocket, therefore, no, it's not that at all. It speaks to the power of stories. It speaks to the fact that whatever you think about, the story that you have told, it's that story that gives it value. Thus, nothing has value without a story. If you don't have a story, then you're just talking. And you have to understand and believe that this stone that's been around for thousands of years. You ever notice how gemstones are always found in really exotic places? I think a sunstone can be found in India, Canada, Madagascar, Siberia, and the United States. You ever notice that gemstones can be found in really exotic places, and those people and those places that those stones are found also have exotic people. So therefore, if you say that you want to go to Madagascar, you're going on a trip. As I say, each week I want to take you on a journey to a place you've never been. I've never been to Madagascar, but what would I expect if I went to Madagascar? If I went to India? If I went to Sri Lanka? I would expect not only the food, the architecture, the people, to be representative of that experience, of that exotic, different energy. So why wouldn't that relate to the gemstone, to the things that come from that area. You ever notice that none of the really exotic gemstones come from like New York? Yeah, I'm from New York. I've never found any sunstones or moonstones just laying up and down the streets of Harlem, New York. No. There's other stones from New York, but not these. These are phenomenal stones. So when the light hits a sunstone, there's a sparkling effect. Diamonds don't have this. In a diamond, these platelets that's inside that creates that spark, those would be called inclusions in a diamond. Those would be like, no, I don't want that. The value would be created. But a sunstone, it's the things that's inside of that makes it special. So make the analogy, what things inside of you that make you special? How are you a sunstone to the people in your life? We're coming back from this whole pandemic, and lives are changing, relationships are changing. And then you meet a person in your life, at your job, teachers. I think about teachers going back, as a teacher myself, going back into the school system with all the chaos. Imagine as a student coming back and your teacher is a sunstone, male or female. It's a sunstone that when you walk in, you can feel the sparkles of light. It's because of who they are and the way they interact with the light. The way the light hits them, this is the effect. This is the effect. Look at that. Look at that. That is a sunstone. Look at the different colors. That's because not only is it a stone that interacts with the light, but the way it interacts with the light, it creates different waves and therefore different colors from that. Isn't there someone in your life that acts just like that? Next week, when we talk about alexandrite, we're talking about a stone that changes color because of the light. Here's a stone that changes color in different parts, depending on the way you look at it. So a sunstone is a stone of personal power, freedom, enhanced enlightenment. I could use that. Whether that's true or not, if I walked out my house and said, I'm going to put this sunstone in my pocket because it's going to give me enhanced awareness, that would be something that was worthwhile to me. That would be something I go, yeah, okay, I can do that. The next stone is labradorite. Labradorite comes from Canada. Basically in the I forgot the name of the area. Labrador. Australia, Finland, Madagascar again, Mexico. This is where you find this gemstone. Now, this gemstone is different. This gemstone is more like opal. It has the different plates that the same thing like a moonstone. But the thing with labradorite is that because of there is a distortion, something different in the molecular structure. So what you have is what's called a play of color. So when you move the stone, doesn't move like an opal, but when you move, it's more set, the colors. But when you move it, you can see, and I'm moving back and forth just to demonstrate the play of colors. And just to go back, the play of color means that when light hits it, the molecular structure of that stone, of this labradorite, excuse me, that it splits it into different rays of light. Isn't that you? Isn't that, it is now 8:52. Isn't that you, those of you who, women, multitask? You have the dark colors for your job. You have the beautiful blue colors for your children. You have the different gold colors, excuse me, for your profession, and you get to change the light. And that's the difference. That's the difference between us as human beings and gemstones. That labradorite will always look like that, forever. That stone will look like that because that stone has been cut, that stone has been designed, and those are the colors. The difference, the real beauty of understanding gemology is that if you understand that all of us are elements, we are all elements put together in a certain way, in a certain structure, in a certain manifestation. We have potassium, calcium, chromium, sodium, aluminum, silicon. That's what we are. But our beauty, the power of who we are as human beings, is the fact that we can change it. We can change it. I am not the same person I was 20 years ago. And part of that reason is I began to understand that if a gemstone can change, if a gemstone has different meanings, this is also labradorite. Darker. Sorry for the light in the back. But it's a darker stone, but it's still beautiful in its own way, in its essence. And each week, I want to take you through the different gemstones to show you the characteristics. A labradorite is a stone of magic. It's a stone of magic. Think about it. Look at these colors, and you can see the magical power. When we're talking about magic, we're not talking about just magic in the sense of hocus pocus. We're talking about clairvoyance. This is the stone of magic, which gives you clairvoyance, telepathy, past life relationships, understanding how that communication with the higher self in the past. Imagine the power of having that in your pocket, on your finger, on your neck. That's how jewelry came about. Jewelry, my symbol of my company, the Gem Hunter. It's basically talking about all these gemstones that had a significant part of human history. And the reason why it's a pendant or ring or earring is because people thousands of years ago understood the power of energy. No, they didn't go to school in Harvard or Northwestern and study biochemistry and chemistry, and they just knew. They knew that there was something different about that gemstone. There's 4,000 different minerals on Earth. 250 are considered gem quality. Not that the other ones are not. There's different gemstones, but again, remember we talked about the different characteristics of a gemstone. So of that 4,250, and then of that, each gemstone has a certain power. And you have to understand, to at least to begin to understand the rarity of all those chemicals coming together to make that gemstone. So just extrapolate that out and think about there's 7.5 or 8 billion people on the planet, but yet there's only one of you. There's only one of you. And unlike a gemstone, these gemstones are going to last for millions and millions of years. They were here before us. They're here now, and they will be here way after us. We only have a short amount of time to show our light, to show the way we interact with the world, with the light. So I want you to leave today to understand what a feldspar is. A feldspar is a simple element, a simple chemical compound, when put together, makes something extraordinary, makes something phenomenal. Isn't that who you are? Isn't that the legacy that you have the potential of leaving on the world? So the next week, we're going to talk about alexandrite. Alexandrite is a relatively new gemstone. Go ahead. So we'll do a little, we'll talk a whole show. But when you understand the power of alexandrite, I believe that you will have a greater appreciation for the woman in your life. Because alexandrite speaks to the multitasking, the abilities that women have to do 5, 6, 7, 10 things at one time and make it look beautiful. So until then, my name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a gemological storyteller, and I want each one of you just to take a moment, take a time in your day to discover the value of your own stories. Au revoir.